All right, good evening. Tonight's guest speaker is going to be Joe Neves. Joe is the current District 1 Kings County Board of Supervisors, and he's up for a town hall today to speak with us. If you don't know me, my name is Larry Furry. I'm the current president of the 1776 Sons of Liberty, based out of Hanford, California. We are the national chapter. Joe was invited here. He's our guest, and this is kind of what we do. We give a platform to our local politicians so that we can engage in politics as just local members of the society, so that we can be involved and not just leave it up to the elected, but be involved in making sure that things are going the right way. We can't just put blame on things that go wrong to the elected if we're not there to back them up. If we're not participating in the process, you can't get mad for people not doing what you expect them to do without telling them what you want them to do or ask them, right? So that's kind of our role, is to engage with the community, engage with the elected, and make sure that we're all working together to make Hanford, Kings County, and California a better place. And that's what we do. But without further ado, Joe Neves.
Good, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to come out and get out of Stratford every once in a while. I've lived there all my life. Stratford Elementary, Lemoore High, West Hills College, Kalinga back in the day. And then went on to University of Phoenix and Bradman and got my master's degree in business administration and accounting. So it's kind of nice to go through that whole thing. And I still tease people about being college boys, even though I have a degree. Still kind of nice. I grew up in Stratford on a family farm. We grew row crops. My dad also had trucks, so I started out working on the farm, went into trucking for 10 years, had an opportunity to become the manager of the Stratford Public Utility District, and so I jumped into that, enjoyed the role of being a public servant and public service. Had a chance to run for supervisor 27 years and 8 months ago, and been there ever since. Some of my volunteerism has been through. Some of my volunteerism has started in Stratford. Grew up through the 4-H program in the Stratford Portuguese Hall. 50 years ago, I was an 8th grader, very young 8th grader. And started out working with the old people, the old folks, mowing the lawn, sweeping the sidewalks, cleaning the restrooms. And I'm very happy to tell you today, 50 years later, I still mow the lawn, I still sweep the sidewalks, and I still clean the restrooms. Some things never change. The old timers are gone. Now I'm the old timer and complain about everything. I've also had a beard for a while. When my son was in kindergarten, they needed a Santa Claus. Came up to the generation gap. Anybody that's been in Hanford a while knows the generation gap. Got one can of white spray paint. Was going to paint it. Wasn't enough. Had to go back and get 3 more. And that stuff must have been real good, because even to this day I can't wash it out. It just keeps sticking. But for 38 years I've put on the red suit and portrayed Santa Claus for a lot of kids. A lot of families, a lot of daycares, a lot of long-term care, just about anything we can do. What else? Want to congratulate Jeff taking that new role on. That's a great deal. My colleague and friend Doug Verboon's in the back. He has a new designation. He's now the monkeypox professional in the county. He was telling me today about all the things about monkeypox that I already knew that I didn't want to know. But he did read the CDC program, and so he does know how to prevent monkeypox. I still don't want to know about the leather, and I don't want to know nothing about the latex. So, but if you get a chance, you might talk to Doug. Last Thursday, I also kicked off Lemoore High School football, and that's my 33rd year being a game day volunteer. Started out on the chain gang when my son was a freshman. I married older women, so that's how I got there so fast. So You know, I mean, Kathy's not here, so I get away with that. Yeah, you noticed that. So started out with the chain gang. Had an opportunity to work with some great people. Some of the educators I had in Stratford, Mr. Wagon, Mr. Villa was the principal. Mr. Lopez was the Spanish teacher. Bill Henry. And so it was nice working with all those guys, and I was glad I had an opportunity. Went in and joined Kiwanis, and also got to work with a lot of those guys that were real mentors in my life. And so to be there with them and really have a chance to not only be there as a student, and then as a parent of a student, and then on the same field working with them was just a great opportunity for me. And I think I learned a lot from them. Let's see, what else? At the county over the last 27 years and 8 months, I've served on just about every committee. I know the budget. I know many of the things that the county does. I am the emergency services director, so if you want to know anything, I won't tell you. But unless you read it in the paper. Yeah. Well, you know, people need to know where to get the contact. I mean, understand the information. Got to watch the terminology there. Served on the homeless committee, served on many of the aging committees, transportation, solid waste, local agency formation commission, association of governments where we get together and talk as cities and counties and special districts. Work a lot with Lemoore Naval Air Station, and my grandmother was actually a cook at the Head Start program at Santa Rosa Rancheria. So I have a perspective of Santa Rosa Rancheria before gaming and now. And so it's quite an operation, it's quite a journey that organization has gone through in the last 35 plus years. I have a couple of characteristics. I'm Portuguese. I am a politician. I'm a truck driver. And I have a master's degree. Those 4 things, I know, but it means I can talk for hours. So if you have any questions, I'd rather answer some of your questions and try to get right to the meat of today's gathering. So anybody want to talk questions? If not, I can just keep talking.
Ned, what's the county position on homeless?
Homeless. Yeah, they're still there.
Oh, yeah, they're still alive.
Yeah. You know, actually, there are 3 or 4 different levels of homelessness. There's the visual homeless people that you see with the shopping carts and standing in the corners collecting money. Then there's another group that are living 2 or 3 generations in a house because they can't afford a mortgage, they can't afford rent, and then there's those individuals that are one catastrophe or one project away from being homeless. So homelessness does not have one cause, and it's not going to have one solution. But if we can focus on doing some of the outreach, the visible homeless people are the hardest to serve, and so those are going to be the most difficult. Many of them have chemical dependencies, whether it's drug or alcohol. Some of them have mental health issues, whether it's schizophrenia or phobias, and it's just very. And then the individual that's in their house, and with inflation and utilities and fuel and everything else, it's very difficult, but we really need to help keep those folks in the system that they're at. And so those programs are a little bit harder also, because they don't have the first-time home buyers and the rental assistance and everything else. But we really need to have a plan that can shore up that population, because once they lose that housing unit, that permanent housing, it's very difficult to get them back. But yeah, three different kinds of homeless people, many different solutions. Yes?
I understand the second one.
Speak loudly.
I understand the second one, and I understand the third one. And I understand those that are trying to make it have a better life problems that we have. Our population has a problem with our open borders, letting people come into our country without any kind of restrictions. But another problem that we have is all of these other towns that have no facilities or no services for people, they keep shipping them to us. And we just keep taking them on and taking them on. I was talking to Adam last week, I'm not throwing him under the bus, but he did make the comment that over in Lemoore, we don't have that problem. In Hanford, or it's very, very minimal in Hanford, because we keep trying to take and create more services for them. All of these other towns keep saying, here, go to Hanford, go to Hanford. So Hanford's homeless population keeps growing, okay, and that's a problem, okay? If the people that are from Bakersfield, if they were not, I'm using Bakersfield as
We gotta simplify the questions though, in the format we have, just simplify the question, please.
Have you guys thought of any way to take and try to do it to where we aren't just taking on everybody, all the other surrounding towns and areas, homeless people? I mean, can we take and send them back? Because if they're from another town, they may have family there that might be willing to help them or might be willing, because if they're isolated here with strangers, it's not good. Like segment 2 and segment 3, if they've got family members that are helping them, there's more of a chance.
Correct, and it is a growing problem. We do have some homeless people in Avenel. We do have some homeless people that are creating a problem in Corcoran. And you hit the nail on the head. Some of the families bring them here because it's easier, it's safer here than being in Alameda or San Francisco. And so they come down and literally drop them off. But I think what we have to do as a community is make it a disincentive, which means if you want services in Kings County, you're going to have to go to work. Because that population does not have a real strong work ethic. And I think that's where we have to change and add things, because even if you go as close to Fresno as Poverello House, you know, that's a low barrier. Just come as you want, stay as long as you want, don't come back for 3 days, and then you can come back and start all over. But, you know, I think we have to put back in programs that involve work and having to get up and go do things, because they like the food here, they like the services, but if you start bringing a higher expectation of either going to school, learning skills, or going to work, that's literally what's going to, you know, make them seek other locations. Yes?
So what I heard you say was that there's a lot of that particular homeless population that doesn't want assistance. What is the plan for dealing with those?
Those are the hardest to serve, I'll be honest with you, because some of them, I go down and talk to homeless people quite a bit. And so, you know, and then you do backgrounds on them. They have money, they have families, they just choose that lifestyle. And that's a very difficult person to serve. And whether they're, you know, chemical dependency, drugs or alcohol, or if it's just some kind of a mental illness, you know, they have some wonderful drugs out there, and as long as you keep them in a controlled environment and they take their meds, they're in good shape. But as soon as they, and unfortunately that population poaches a lot. And so they want those good drugs, and they want to give them some CBD oil or some other kind of herb or some other kind of additive. And they spiral downward because, again, they have good meds.
I think we understand the problem. I'm asking, is there a solution?
No, just making them work. Put a work ethic to it. You know, because they like that environment and they like that lifestyle because they don't have to get up. They don't have to, you know, go pick up the mail. Don't have to answer the phone. There's a lot of, I can understand why they like that lifestyle. But it's difficult for me to figure out how someone feels safer out living under a tree than they do in a bricks and mortar.
Joe, just real quick, for the sake of the broadcast, can you repeat the question?
Okay.
So that means simplify your question so they can be repeated, please.
No more than 5 words.
Joseph, do other people on the board have the same assumption as you that they should work? Or are you the only one that's had a problem?
I think the question was, is the mindset on the board, and I think we're pretty unique. I think as a board, we pretty much are a block. And
then what kind of work would you recommend that they be involved in, as a qualification, how does that go?
Mick is menial labor, picking up trash in the park, sweeping the curbs and gutters. There's a lot of things you can do that, and really, I don't want to go out there and dig a ditch for 8 hours either. Really, it just takes a couple hours in the morning or a couple hours in the evening, helping out at a Little League Park, helping out with a football program, picking up trash. There are a lot of things that we have to pay people to do, and they certainly don't want to be challenged, but we need to instill a work ethic in that population.
Question pertaining the group that we discussed here among ourselves, but I also had a conversation with you about this issue. That has to do with Christy Lee and how she got taken off as an elected official, as our OB, register of voters, and you took her off out of that voter-led position, and you just made her an assessor. And I did talk to you out at the breakfast, where we were sitting out there at the house, and you gave me an explanation, something like, it's probably that's because we can do it, or something to that effect of the law. So maybe you here, you can clarify that, so that we have a better understanding. We feel that should be an elected decision. And so I want to let you know that that's what we want to do.
Thank you, Bob. The question is the elected officials between the register of voters, the recorder, and assessor. State of California has so many constitutional officers. The assessor is the only one in that group that is an elected official. And so a few years ago, in order to consolidate department heads and consolidate departments, we thought it would make a lot of sense to cross-train people, since they're assessor, recorder, register of voters. It all kind of made sense. A couple of years into the program, the cross-training of people just never happened. The recorder's office stays very busy, the assessor's office stays very busy, and the elections office. And so I think it was a misdiagnosis of the symptoms that we thought we could combine those three operations and do it with a little bit fewer people. And it just didn't happen, and the cross-training didn't happen. We had an opportunity to put the registered voter back in as a independent department head. It helps with the budget, it helps with staffing, it helps with training. Those three operations just, on the outside looking in, kind of made sense. But when you started trying to combine those three operations, they just didn't mesh well together.
I have a follow-up to that, Joe. So I totally understand your response. However, since they did bring it up, can the board decide to make that registrar position an elected position? Is that within your purview?
Yeah, currently it's not a California constitutional office, so it would have to be something that the voters would have to put on the ballot and vote for it, because if you can remember back, it was a ballot initiative when we combined those offices, with the exception of the elected registered voters.
And just to be clear, when you say to get back on the ballot, are you talking statewide or
No.
this county?
County.
So it can't be done in this county with a citizens initiative, right?
With a referendum.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys thinking alike? Maybe I thought you guys are in different parts of the room then. Lynn?
I want to go back to the homes. You know, I know you're only 45, but what can we do as citizens to help? Because we can talk about this all we want. There's programs out there, but what can we do as citizens to put a program together to help these people? We must have something.
Yeah, Lynn, thank you. And the question was, how do you get people involved with the homeless situation? And if you're a business owner, if you're a coach, if you're an administrator, if you run any kind of youth program, you know, finding a position, finding a job, finding a role for these, because I think some of these people just need an opportunity. It's sometimes scary to get somebody, especially if they have some kind of chemical dependency around kids, but whether it's a senior program, you know, there are a lot of well, there used to be a lot of bingo games, there used to be a lot of different programs going on. COVID and a lot of other things changed a lot of that. But anytime you have an opportunity to try to employ some of these homeless population, the bad part is if you go around, those signs no longer say work for food, they just say give me money.
Oh, yeah.
So that makes it equally difficult to try to serve that population.
And that's the whole question again is that for those, I mean, I like the work component of the homeless working for those days. But what happens to those, and what does the county or the city can and cannot do for those who don't want to work? Do we displace them somewhere else? I mean, what rights do they have, and what rights does the city have to, kind of find a solution and encourage them to work? But if they don't want to, then what?
Correct. The question was how do we encourage people that don't have a work ethic to try to go to work? The county, as part of its charter, is a last resort, general assistance. If some of you remember that terminology. General assistance is when you help somebody that needs a help. A lot of those programs now have 5-year sunsets to them. So you can be in a program and you get general assistance, but you can only do it for 60 months. And so a lot of those folks have already gotten through their 60-month period, and so they're no longer qualified for general assistance. Under general assistance, we can make them work 4 or 5 hours a day, or 4 to 6 hours a week. And we continue to clean the Bingo Hall in Lemoore for the Lemoore Seniors Inc. They have some janitorial services they do in Corcoran and in Avenel. And so we use that group for those type of work activities, but we are getting to where some of these folks are already getting to their 60 months threshold and they can no longer be in general assistance. But it's difficult to get folks to change their work habit.
Is there laws out there on the books that protect them, or do they have rights, and what are those rights that the homeless may have that we can't infringe on?
Yeah, and the question was the rights of the homeless people, and we are getting more and more people that come into the county that are very sophisticated and know their rights as a unhoused individual, and that makes it very, very difficult because, and we have some very compassionate people that are on the homeless coalition. They want to create safe zones. They want to be able to fix up environments where the homeless people will feel safe. The problem is, they don't want help. They want to be independent. They want to be off the grid. They want to be able to collect money and spend money the way they want. And that makes it very, very difficult to serve that individual. And it's hard to get them to go back to their home county.
We talk about serving, they don't want to be served. It's a wonderful thought.
Yeah.
But what can we do to enforce? They have to somewhere, if they're non-compliant, then it's working properly, there's got to be some kind of enforcement. County, city, or whatever, that we can apply to help solve those that are non-compliant. But I think most of them are non-compliant. And we have a welfare system that is exploding people who don't want to work. It's a society that encourages people who don't want to work. So to have them, say that the homeless, we need to switch their work ethic. We can't even get college graduates to have a good work ethic. So, I mean, I'm just thinking there's a big gap there that, we've gone away from enforcement. So, I mean, I don't know what that enforcement would be. I mean, their jails are already filled, but there's got to be another option.
And the question was how do you deal with this highly sophisticated, unsheltered individual that knows the laws and rules more than law enforcement? Those are a very difficult person to serve. I'll be honest with you. But if you tell them they're serving ribeye steaks at the Polverello house, they'll get on the train and they'll go.
How do we keep them on that?
I know, that's the hard part.
I mean,
Do we have any record of these homeless people? How many in Gates County? And how many are from local and how many from outside the county? And is that number and how many and what ratio it's growing. So that way we can have a record, and we were talking about it, but we need to find a solution if that number is going to keep going up, because it's reasonable here. We know where they're coming from, but we're supposed to have data on these things.
Yeah, and the question is how do you inventory, how do you count homeless people? Every January, the last 10 or 12 years, we've done a point in time count. We actually do that. We have a crew of people that go out to the encampments, interview people, ask them if they're sheltered, ask them where they come from. The thing is, today's homeless population is very sophisticated, so they all tell you they're from Kings County. I guarantee you, I've never seen some of those people. They're different, but they have been programmed through all of the questions and answers that they know to say that they're from here. And so that makes it difficult. Number-wise, actually the number went down. And they don't want you to know that. It went from 300 to about 280. But part of it is the way you ask the question, because some of the questions were, are you sheltered? Well, they got some of the federal stimulus money, so they bought a car, so they're sleeping in a car in Walmart. And so to the homeless person that has a little bit of money, that's sheltered. And of course, to everyone else, that doesn't hit our definition of shelter. But there are currently 180 to 220 people that go unsheltered on a nightly basis, and that's one night a week at least. There are about 5,000 people in the waiting list for some kind of Section 8 rental assistance, mortgage assistance on any given month. And then the one that you don't know, that's always the scary one, is how many the finance companies are getting ready to evict somebody because they haven't made a payment, or a landlord is getting tired of them because they haven't paid the rent. That's an unknown number. Yes?
Yeah, what role or involvement did the board of supervisors have in the initiation of the North Star project, and what involvement do you have in it currently?
Yeah, North Star is almost a nationwide. Started in the East Coast, started in Chicago, and again, we're talking about the origin of North Star. North Star has, in the last few years, came to California. They're in Porterville with the project. They're in Clovis in a project. They came to Kings County. Kings County had $1 million of state money that we had to use on some kind of subsidized housing, and so it checked off all the boxes. So our involvement is $1 million in a $36 million project. But yeah, we didn't pick the spot. It checks the boxes because it's subsidized housing, affordable housing. It has casework in it to help those individuals that may need anger management, chemical dependency. Like I said, it checked off all the boxes when it comes to programs.
Did board look and say, maybe this was a good location, and you said, like, here's the money, go? You could have, a lot of areas of the state, the city owns a lot of land. You could have picked a different place.
Yeah, we weren't in the selection process. North Star picked the location. They didn't ask our opinion.
So you have any involvement in it now, or is it all over the
Yeah, North Star is still, we really haven't heard an update on them for a while. The money's still going through the process. I think they're just about ready to get Porterville opened up, and I think Clovis will open up either September or October.
We sure want to know where Denver's at. If you guys figure it out.
Okay, yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, all right. I think there's somebody.
How much are we spending a year on the community programs?
The Dominion, has evolved the Dominion voting system, and we have spent a couple of $100,000 on the ballot readers. We have 2 of them, and then on the machines itself. And so, collectively, it's probably $1.25 million, $1.5 million.
Okay, then when we want our money back because we're back. And whatever you need to do to get rid of the machine.
Yeah, we have done some things with Dominion and even its predecessor before. A lot of the problems the machines had is when you hook them to the cloud, hook them to the internet, and you try to get that data downloaded into the elections office as quick as you can. We never created that interface. And so for us, the best virus protection is to not have it connected to the
That doesn't matter if they're connected or not.
Well,
They still have the Wi-Fi devices inside of them.
oh no, they don't have, these don't have
Yes, they
it.
do.
No.
But let's open them up.
Yeah.
Let's open them up.
Okay.
We can figure that out later.
Okay.
I think what he's trying to get at is, how would we, as an informed electorate, go about removing the Dominion and going back to a person counting the ballots? How would we go about doing it?
Yeah.
Is that even a possibility?
Yeah, that's a pretty tough possibility. I'll be honest with you. You know, if you can remember a few years back when Florida tried to hang chads and all of the other problems.
That was a setup.
Exactly. You know, but automation is here, and there are other machines out there. The board seen 3 different vendors when we chose to stay with Dominion. Dominion has evolved to where even the printers anymore, they're not, they don't have to come from Dominion, they just have the software. And so we can just go to Staples and get a Hewlett-Packard printer, and it prints. The county used to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on ballots, and now we just print it, we buy the paper and print them and keep it inside. The Dominion, I know, has that reputation and has worldwide problems, but we have tried to do everything that we can internally to keep it to where we don't have any holdups with the election, whether it's integration with Hewlett-Packard technology or, and we just don't use the web.
They all be manipulated without being on the web.
Correct.
You got a question right here.
Yes.
Has Sacramento allocated funds to Kings County for the homeless?
Correct. The funds,
How much money?
you know, depends on, the question was how much money comes from Sacramento into Kings County to handle the homeless population. There are different pots. So you have general assistance, you have behavioral health gets quite a bit of money. And then you have the investment in operations like the Project Luna Fee and North Star. So,
Are you required to spend money?
correct.
You are required to spend money.
Correct. Well, either that or give it back.
Okay, how about you give it back until the homeless go somewhere else?
Yeah. That's
Because
yeah.
the city and county are enabling them.
Correct.
We're enabling them, period. I work with the homeless every time I come to work. Okay, I do a little bit more Saturday, most people in the room about homeless.
Yeah.
Okay, no 20-year meth addict is going to go get a job. It's plain and simple. Okay, so it's not only
Yeah.
that we're not.
Right, and that's
stuff that is hard in the middle of the night. What I want to do is trade for drugs.
correct. Yeah, and that's the visible homeless that's going to be very difficult to serve. We're just trying to work with people that just need a little bit of help with it, either with rent or mortgage.
That's the relationship between the law and
The question was the relationship that the law enforcement local law enforcement has with homeless, and Governor Newsom has taken a lot of things away and decriminalized a lot of things and made legal for them to camp on state property, made it legal to camp wherever they feel like it. And so that makes it extremely difficult because they have decriminalized a lot of the activities from homeless people.
Now, you've got my interest, so what about, we hear about the word Kansas City, well, what about an actual campground where they all go to, and when they are legally on a property, they get sent back to the campground. Instead of a hayaway, we get a takeaway, I mean, there's so much land in the county, why couldn't we provide them behavioral health there, provide services there, and that's the important.
Correct, and the question was, why don't we create safe zones? Why don't we create camping areas, so they can set up their tents, they have security, they have lockers that they can leave their belongings because they don't want to come. They need pets because they have pets, and so that without having a structure, they need something to leave their pets when they receive medical attention or go to their counseling. There is a discussion about that. And my personal opinion is, though, the individuals that don't want to be catered to by government, all of a sudden you're going to tell them to go somewhere, they're probably not going to do it.
Hey Joe, I don't want to spend our whole time on homeless, but
Yeah.
we'll move on. But I'll take two more questions. But
Okay.
for homeless, real quick, out of that 280 homeless that Kings County have, how many of those are based in Hanford? Because I do see a disparate difference where Hanford's taking the brunt of all of Kings County's homeless. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't remember the numbers. I think it's 20 or 30 in Avenel, 30 or 40 in Corcoran. But I'd have to go back and check the website and figure out what those are. And again, that's a point in time, one night count, and so and it's in January, so it varies quite a bit.
And can that be addressed where not all the services are based in Hanford for Kings County? I'm sure Lemoore could use some more services and take some of those homeless because they ship them all to Hanford because that's where the services are at. Am I false in that assertion?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're Lemoore, Corcoran, and Avenel. Just they're cities. They don't have a lot of the facilities you need to be able to deal with homeless. Nor is Hanford. They have their heart team that has done a great job of categorizing and cataloging all the homeless people. They know them. That's helped a great deal. Now the hard part is designing a program that heart team can work with those individuals. Hanford has done a great job dealing with the homeless population. Well, they're farther ahead than Avenel, Corcoran, or more, and those departments just don't have the resources or the skill set to be able to accomplish that. And it's taken Hanford several years to do that, but they spent a lot of money on this.
We'll take Travis and Lynn's question, and we'll move subjects.
Getting back to the gentleman's question about receiving the funds for the homeless, you stated earlier that there were 3 types of homeless, and the first type is the hardest one to deal with. In receiving those funds, are you allocated to address all 3 of those types of homeless, or can you just channel those funds or appropriate those funds according to certain types of homeless, the ones that are multiple people living in homes or people that are just one paycheck away from going homeless, as opposed to those that are just on the streets? What is your thoughts and how does that allocation of funds, because do you feel it's important to give back those funds or take those funds and address it to certain areas as opposed to all of the areas?
The question was the categorization of the funds that come in. They are allocated to certain arenas, just like the Project Room Key is to, and especially during the pandemic. The old Stardust, if you can remember the Stardust out Lacey, that facility served 360 people since its conversion into permanent housing. Currently houses about 70. About 60 of those have graduated on and have permanent housing and have jobs and have increased revenue. But when you do the math, you still have 120 or 130 people.
So you can keep some of those funds for those types of projects,
Correct.
but you can return funds for other types.
Correct. And if you go by 10th and Afro-Mona Road out by the rehab, you'll see some structures out there. That's going to be the next phase for those individuals that come out of Project Room Key. We've had to downsize that project from 27 to 20 structures. That's a little bit more of an area to serve those individuals that are already homeless, that need to get out of a tough situation, whether it's living with family, living with friends. Couch surfing is kind of a term. And many of those individuals, again, are living in cars. You'll see them at fast foods and Walmarts and different places around. So those 20 units are gonna help, but like I say, there's about 4,000 or 5,000 a month looking for some kind of subsidized housing. The other one is just harder to fix because the financial institutions are the ones that are really controlling that. And so that one's the one you don't see until they show up at the office and say, hey, I'm getting evicted in 30 days. So we don't have a real good indication of what those numbers are.
Lynn, I'll catch you in a second. Real quick, because someone's got to leave. But what I want to address, one of the major subjects that we talk about here is water allocation, what the Board of Supervisors' responsibility is to keep water in Kings County, what the responsibility is, or what the water district's responsibility and how much authority you have over basically keeping our water into Kings County without it getting shipped out. And I know that there's currently an issue, and maybe you could hit on that as much as you can, but basically at the last 2 city council meetings ago, the city council talked about basically not allowing water to be moved out of Hanford, which it mostly gets moved out of the county, but writing a referendum where, to some degree, where water can't be moved. Is the county board of supervisors going to take action within their jurisdiction to not have our Kings County water moved to other water jurisdictions or other counties? I know that's a long question, but you get the gist of that.
The question was mainly on how do you move water. And Kings County's been a county for 129 years, 1893. And in that 129 years, we've never dealt with really water except a few flood events. Droughts, the irrigation districts, many of them have been around for 100 years or more. A lot of them have been around since the 50s, but they have really managed the surface water. And I'll be honest with you, nobody's really paying attention to the groundwater, except for the last 30 years when the state of California decided water is a commodity that you can sell and not a resource. And so that commodity value has added a volume of water that's being sold on the market. One thing that I need to clarify with a lot of different people, and the tough part that I have is that Kings County, really our problem is we don't have a watershed. Our water comes from Tulare and Fresno County. We have a 1 million acre watershed that's in Tulare and Fresno County that comes down to Kings. So we are an importer of water. And whether it's being delivered through Cahuilla, Cross Creek, Kings River, California Aqueduct, the 7 to 9 inches of rain that we get on a normal basis is not enough to grow a crop that needs 36 or 42 inches of water. So we have imported water for a long time. So when you want to close the door and not let water to be exported out of the county, I'm a little bit concerned that Tulare and Fresno County will fix their water needs because they'll say it's our water, I don't want to export it to Kings County anymore. So you have to come up with an ordinance or regulation, guidelines that will not only protect our historical rights to water, but also protect in the future, because there are politicians in Sacramento that want to do away with a lot of the water law, water history of the state of California. All of the appropriations down to Kings, that of the 28 water users took 40 years to negotiate that. That kept a couple attorneys, that was their whole career. We don't have that much time. So we need to come up with a formula that will allow us to continue to get water from outside the county and keep the water that we have here. Because whether that water comes through the surface supply of the Kings, Cross Creek, Cahuilla, Aqueduct, we just can't allow water to leak. So, but I don't know how you craft an ordinance that you have. Kern County has an ordinance, but they have watershed. They have a lot of other different issues. Fresno County has, but the problem, Kings County was carved out of Tulare and Fresno County. There's a 1 million acre watershed that is up in that Piedra, everything that feeds into Pine Flat. And it used to be concentrated in 400,000 acres. That used to be the Tulare Lake. When modern irrigation practices came along, that 1 million acre foot of watershed It's now spread over a 1 million acre service area. So when you do the math, that's still only 1 acre foot per acre. You still got to find 24 inches of water for crops. And so you need projects like Rogers Crossing, Temperance Flats. We need more reservoirs. We need more upper level storage. We need to develop some recharge into the aquifer and not rely on surface water percolating down. We have 3 different zones. The A zone is the first 100 foot of our soil profile, and that profile is doing pretty good. Irrigation happens, extraction happens. It doesn't really leave its area. The 2 areas we're having problems with through Sustainability Act is that 400 feet above the Corcoran clay and the 400 feet below it. And a lot of that recharge doesn't happen in Kings County. If you go up there to 43 and 99 and you look at those recharge basins out there, a lot of our water comes from that north recharge area.
Is there not a differentiation between surface water and groundwater? I understand that surface water has to be moved throughout the state. However, the aquifers that are under Kings County ground, is there not any jurisdiction over that watershed or that water system?
Yeah, the question was geography in Kings County. The key difference in Kings County versus other parts of the world is none of the parent material that makes up the topsoil in the San Joaquin Valley comes from here. There's all of the topsoil came from the Sierra Nevadas to the east and the Coast Range to the west. And all of that water, or most of it, was delivered through alluvial fans. And so if you go back to the last couple of million years, all of that water has flowed down, and it has also created aquifers and recharge areas, all based on those historic flows. So the governor does not like to tie surface water and groundwater together, but in the San Joaquin Valley, the 9 counties or so that stretch from Kern to Stanislaus, we really have to tie them together because they are connected. Surface water recharges the groundwater, and whether that's local or a little farther away, it just takes more time to get the water here. And so we just have to work on a plan that we can do some aquifer recharge programs and try to get the water back into the aquifers that it needs to be.
Well, we'll take Larry right.
There's a lot of water that leaves Kings County on sales.
On sale.
Correct.
But to where?
Mainly Kern County.
Clear Lake sells half their water to Bakersfield in LA.
Yeah.
When I moved up where I live on 6th Avenue, I had water in my canal every single day, year round, for 10 years. And it started this year, last year, we had 1 week of water. So I talked to the person on the Cleo Lake Port. They sell half of the water they have to the south.
But then you have
And the
farmers
quick-
like
That's not, those conversations aren't getting picked up on the mic, so let's just keep the questions as questions. Well, go ahead, Larry.
Any way possible, eliminate, well, not eliminate it, but limit people like John Goodrich, buying water, shipping it out?
You know, there's a couple of different things. The question was, how do you limit the export of water? I think most of the time, if you have an allocation and you're active farming, you should be allocated to 36 inches, 42 inches of water, and that's probably should be your water budget. So I think what's happening is some people are pumping water and selling it, using it as a commodity, and they're making money off of it. And that's what's hurting us here because they're exporting that water.
He's buying the ground just to get the water.
Correct. And that's what they did.
And the land is sitting there.
Correct. And that's what they did 100 years ago in Owens Valley through LA. And there are other parts of the world that's a practice that has occurred over the years. And it's something that we're really...
Is there not a legal precedence to intervene and stop that? Because I know like Model Lake, the citizens up there, Levine and Bishop and all that, went to court for years, and that lake's now filling back up because the LA County Water District was taking all that water to the detriment of the local people there, and that's exactly what's happening in Kings County. For profit for someone else, the citizens of Kings County aren't profiting. You have a rich farmer that's profiting. Is there not any legal stance to
the Kings County, the Board of Supervisors, the City of Hanford can move forward and litigate that so that our next generation, the generation after that says, well, shoot, they didn't do anything, we're out of water, so now, that's it.
Yeah, no, the question was how do you litigate water? Yeah, as I stated earlier, it took 40 years to allocate, do the allocations down to Kings, so it's not an easy answer. And there's attorneys that keep rubbing your nose together to make sure that you don't come up with a simple answer. But it is those cases that you identified that serve as precedents to allow us to do our job. And that's exactly what happened with the last pipeline project. The judge gave us a hard time because we didn't do our job. But if you look at counties like San Luis Obispo and Merced that have been sued because, again, after 129 years and now all of a sudden you want to take care of water, why did you pick 2022?
Because we're out of water.
Yeah, no, I think there are some legitimate reasons, but I'm cheap. I don't want to spend it on attorneys. And so as long as you have a court that tells you you should be doing it, I feel that there's precedents now that we can get started.
I think I can agree, I think everyone can agree here is that we all came together because of transparency, the lack of transparency, city council, board of supervisors. So, could you take a stand? What is your call on transparency to us as a city, or as a community?
Yeah, the question is transparency. Mainly is to get involved, review the general plan, review the zoning, review the business development plans, review the housing elements, because those are the key things that people complain about. I'll be honest with you. But you also have to be knowledgeable. And as elected body, we can't individually go out and say, hey, Lynn, did you know there's going to be a 7-Eleven on your corner? Do you know there's going to be a dollar store? And some people like dollar stores and some people like 7-Elevens. I like them both, but I'm not sure. So really, a lot of that information's online. So it's really getting the electorate more involved. And so it's transparency that as an elected official, we think that the information's there. Do we spoon feed it to you? No. Does everybody have a computer and everybody computer literate? No. So I think we could do a better job. We can do a better, whether you call it a campaign or the ability to talk about websites and talk about different ways to access information. Today there's information available that no other generation had. And there are just not enough people taking advantage of it. So, yeah.
Since Measure F didn't pass, what's the plan? Does King County Fire need more of a budget? Will they get what they need? What's happening there?
Measure F, right?
Yeah, Measure F was an initiative that was on the June primary. The firefighters did an excellent job. They worked, got it qualified, be on the ballot. Unfortunately, Lake Victoria just didn't support it. Other jurisdictions, I'm going to use Clark County, Las Vegas, have municipal departments. And we've never been able to, and even though Doug and I have tried for the last dozen years or so, to try to make a more cohesive Kings County Fire Department. You still keep your patches, you still keep your equipment, you still keep your stations, but if we could consolidate, have better training, better recruitment, better administration, not better, more consolidated administration, I think we could help. But fire departments are just an expensive part of the operation. Fire trucks, $1.5 million, and it takes you 400 days to order one and get one. So it's not something that you're going to change on a dime. It's not anything that you can do to help with equipment. Training, I think we've done a pretty good job, but yet I was a volunteer for 39 years, did it for free. A lot of people don't have that same work ethic, and so the volunteer ranks are just not there anymore. So we're going to have to figure out how to staff a fire department, equip the fire department, and keep the infrastructure alive to continue to serve people.
Is there a volunteer program right now with Kings County Fire?
No.
Why not?
You know, the demise of the volunteer fire department in Kings County. The last couple of years that I was a volunteer fireman, didn't get paid, but I was required to put in 100 hours worth of training. CPR, first aid, communicable diseases. Now I have Doug, he can teach me that class. Confined spaces. I was fortunate to have a Class A license, so I didn't have to go through the training part of it. But by the time you get through all of that training, you have 100 hours a year just to be a volunteer. So it makes it a lot of problems to try to get that. I still think that we have the potential of creating that individual that wants to be a fireman and create like an auxiliary that would allow that career-minded individual to come into the fire service. And whether they're taking a fire science class at COS or Fresno State or Fresno City or a paramedic program at West Hills, we can give them on-the-job training, pay them a stipend, and try to get them involved in the fire service. But
You would think there'd be some interest if Lemoore only has a volunteer fire department that's fully staffed, pretty much. You would think there'd be some interest in some Hanford, Kings County residents in taking up the volunteer positions. But if there's not an outlet for that,
and I was always lucky that I either working for family or working for Stratford Public Utilities, my employer always let me to run. And there was years that I'd run 80, 100 calls. A lot of employers don't want their employees doing that either. And so the employment side of people that are having to work and make money don't have that luxury to do that. Lemoore is really an anomaly. Back east you have a lot of volunteers. A lot of departments that don't have paid staff. They take care of the volunteer service, they take care of the equipment, they take care of the station. But those individuals like Layton, Riverdale, Five Points, are pretty much gone because you just can't do the training, can't maintain the training records and all of the paperwork that it takes, and the lack of employers that will allow their employee to go to a call. And believe me, there's nothing worse than getting woke up at 2:30 in the morning to go to somebody's house because their kid has a sunflower seed up their nose. So it's difficult to get people to have that position. And have that. Sure, you want to go to the fires, you want to go to the traffic accidents, but there's a lot of that job you don't want.
Sure.
And as a volunteer.
Fernando?
I'm going to go back to water real quick.
Okay.
I have a water question pertaining more to the residential style of wells. This is from personal experience. I just had to drill a new well on my property. I've dropped about 70 feet of water in the past 5 years. Dried up, so had to go through the whole process. There was a real pain in the neck. Had to go through the GSAs, of course. Had to get permission. Had to sign my life away, saying that if they wanted to come control it, they could. If they wanted to cap it, they could. Also, I had to know how deep my neighbors' wells were. And I'm talking, we're looking at a residential well that's 5-inch casing. I'm going to be pulling maybe 12 gallons a minute. And on the flip side, I come from a farming background, dairy farming, that's what my family did growing up. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all farmers, and that's what our valley's built on. But it seems like on the residential side, that's more scrutiny than I've seen any of the ag customers have to go through, pulling 12 gallons a minute versus, maybe a couple thousand. So how much input do you guys have as board of supervisors on that process? I have another friend that's building a house. He's going through the same process, and he's surrounded by 30 homes, and he has absolutely no way of knowing how deep these wells are, and the people won't talk to him. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're stuck. Is there something that can be done to help with that situation? And then how much input do you guys have on that?
Yeah, the question was dealing with the State Sustainability Groundwater Management Act that Governor Brown signed in 2014. We're about 7-8 years into its implementation, and so we are. You're absolutely right. The pendulum has probably, swung way too far. Hopefully, it'll come back, and those de minimis pumpers, like you're talking, an acre foot a year, are hopefully sometime in the future not going to be so focused on. But for the current time, that's just the environment, unfortunately, that we are in. It's kind of nice to know that information as a county to be able to track it. Not that I want to know how much water you're using, but I just like to know where the water levels are. And so part of that's good information. That's only been available in the last 20 years or so because going back to your grade school history, California was really formed in 1849 when gold was gold and brought all the 49ers out. And so elements, gold, silver, copper, even the mercury mines and everything, there was a lot of different information that was very privileged that counties didn't get, only the state had it, the state wasn't sharing. And so now we have gone from that environment to where now we want to create everything, create an inventory, know everybody's business. We want to know how big your septic tank is. We want to know how many toilets you have, how many showers. Don't try to take a shower with your wife because they don't want to have two heads in the shower. That might be against the rules. So, but hopefully when we get a couple more years into the Sustainability Groundwater Management Act, hopefully we'll get some wet years to recharge some of that aquifer. But really, if you're staying in that, again, the minimus user, you're not using more than an acre foot. I really don't think you should be part of the equation except for the measurement of where the water's at.
Sure. So, yeah, I was just curious if there was a way to kind of streamline that process for people that may be out of water, you know what I mean? So
correct.
You got a household running was dry, and then you're sitting here waiting for bureaucracy for people to come through and wait for information that you have no clue.
Correct. And then the bad part that we're running into, I still sign all the paperwork for the South Fork Kings, and you can come in and sign it. I can sign it in a week. PG&E's not going to get there for 6 months. If you have to have a new service, or you have to have, or if you're an older service, only have a 3-wire drop, you need a 4-wire drop. It's 7, 8, 10 months. So, government's not the only bureaucracy that holds people up. And if PG&E had a little bit of competition or had a little bit more availability, those structures that I talked about out on 10th and Half Motor Road, they're not inhabited today because we don't have the transformers to hook up the electricity. So.
Hey, just to follow up on Fernando's question, are those regulations and asks he's talking about, are those county is asking for those things, or is that a state regulations?
That's a state, yeah. Part of the regulations dealing with the sustainability water is all driven from the state. And so we're trying to create that infrastructure, that information database, so that the state can really do that. Again, back when I ran wastewater treatment plants and water plants, I always wondered if anybody in Sacramento ever read the reports, because they'd come down and say, "What are you doing this?" I did that 6 years ago. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But doesn't the county or the city have copies of the permits, the building permits, or aren't there permits pulled for those wells? So couldn't he go over to the county with a list of his neighbor addresses, and couldn't the county pull that information?
The question was, how do you share information? And my wife had the unfortunate act of trying to get her California Real ID. And if you ever try to get information out of the county, it's tough. And so.
Do you know anybody that can fix that, John?
Exactly. She had a difficult time getting her
No,
real
we're
ID.
talking apples and oranges though. We're talking about building permits that would be
Correct.
pulled with the building department.
Yeah,
So they could take and pull, because you have to pull a permit, a building permit with the county or with the city. Couldn't he go over there with those addresses and have them pull the records for him for those specific addresses? It'll tell how deep it was pulled at that time, won't it?
It
Or
will,
see-
and
Or
it-
see who pulled it, whether it was Haynes or whoever, and then go to Haynes and ask him, how deep did you drill that well?
yeah. And again, chasing back the information, as the governmental body that has, whether it's in the recorder's office or in the assessor's office or in community development that wrote the permit, you really have to be a person of interest, not just a neighbor. So you really have to
Isn't
get
that all
permission.
public record though? Because you can get list of building permits pulled as a public person. You
Yeah.
can take and have them mail them to you.
Yeah. Do you trust it?
Yeah, I've used
Good
it.
enough for a permit.
Yeah.
He shouldn't even need his neighbor's addresses. This should be his address and they already know who's around and what's around. Why is the individual person having to do, if the government wants all this information and the government has the information, why doesn't the government get the information its own self?
Yeah, the permit process has only been in about 10 years. So a lot of these structures that are more than 10 years old, you really didn't have to come in and get a permit for a well. You didn't have to come in and get a permit. So there's a lot of historical records that are not being stored at the county.
So why do they need to know the neighbors then if they didn't have, the neighbor didn't have to have a permit?
No, because now they want you to have a permit. They want to know how much water you're drawing and what aquifers.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with your neighbor?
They want to, yeah.
Who wants to have? Well, tell them to go ask themselves.
If the state's asking for it, there's not much. Let's focus on issues that we can fix here at home.
You
Go
can
ahead.
fix the state here at home.
But not with Joe. Joe's not the governor.
You don't need the governor.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, we don't need.
Right, we don't.
How much time supervisors or the water districts have before the state jumps in for the water? And second, the pumps are not active. They've been abandoned. County has any special program or help to, close them properly?
The question was some of the milestones of the Sustainability Groundwater Management Act, and all of the plans for the Tulare Lake were due last year. They were rejected by the state for 3 reasons. We didn't do a good enough job in their minds addressing subsidence, water quality, and subsidence, water quality. Doug, help me out. What was the third one?
The export. Storing water in shallow layers.
Shallow layers. So those are the 3 things. Once we get an approved plan, which hopefully will be this calendar year, maybe early 2023, then there are 5-year milestones that we have to continue to track the data, share that data with the state of California, and figure out how we're doing. So it's not just water level, it's subsidence for land, and it's also the way you store water. There are a lot of programs. South Fort Kings, if you get on the South Fort Kings website, Aquifer Recharge and Storage Program, Stoneland Company allowed us to do a pilot program, so we dropped about 60 acre-feet of water down the hole, recharged it, and then brought it back up 60 days later. The other day I had an opportunity to talk with some folks, and all of those straws that are pumping water out of the aquifers, if we could figure out a way to get water back down that same straws and use those as conduit and put the water back where the water came from in that aquifer, seems to be a viable option. Because a lot of these on-farm storage, a lot of these stormwater retention basins, it's great. That event that I talked about up there at 43 and 99, that thing, you can fill that thing level full and it'll suck an acre foot a day out of it, but it takes 20 years to get to us. And there are a whole lot of pumpers between us and them. And so you can't rely on regional recharge. And even though we need to encourage that, especially when we have high water years, to be able to recharge a lot of those aquifers, we really shouldn't be capping wells. My opinion, Joe Neves' opinion. We should be able to turn those into conduits to be able to treat water, drop it down the hole, and recharge that aquifer exactly where the water's coming from. And I think that's going to be the best design for the future. There's a couple of reasons why that works. You're meeting the demands of agriculture, you're meeting the demands of municipalities, and if you have excess water in the system, you're just dropping it down into a storage account. So,
what about the millions of acre feet that are being dumped out into the ocean?
Yeah, I wish I had that power. You know, and that's the problem with.
Well, tell the governor to take a hike until he fixes that.
Yeah, I think we've told the last 3 governors, and they're, you know, they come up with these wonderful plans of, you know, pipelines. Why don't you just let the water go through? The state of California as a state creates about 100 million acre feet of water a year. Unfortunately, it's generated in the north. We need it in the central and the south. And elected officials 120 years ago understood that because they built the Frank Kern on the east side, California Aqueduct on the west side. As a valley, 6 or 7 million acre feet will meet our needs, I'll be honest with you. And if you would just fill the reservoirs first and then dump it to the ocean.
If California really gets 100
million acre feet,
I get reports that we only use 60 million.
Not even.
So, what's the problem?
It's not about, it's about water control and controlling people. It's not about making sense.
Correct. So make them fix it.
No. Yeah.
So they want us to drink sewer water and eat bugs.
You know, the question continues to be the water question of how you do the quality. Really, I think if the state of California run like Hetch Hetchy, we wouldn't have a problem either. Because if you think about Hetch Hetchy and the wonderful water that's fed into the San Francisco metropolitan area, they don't have issues because they control their own environment. We are at the beck and call of individuals that make Sacramento, right? And have a different attitude, a different perspective of water, environment, and control. Correct.
Any other questions?
You've been a wonderful crowd. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Take care home, and I'll keep drinking my water. Honest.
Hey, Joe, thanks for coming out. We really appreciate it. If you ever have an issue, if you guys have an issue that needs some public outreach, let us know. We can help facilitate that. One thing I do want to say before I let you guys off the hook is Board of Supervisor meetings are in the morning on what day? Tuesday. Most of the people concerned with local politics all have jobs. Is there a reason why that the Board of Supervisors meeting is at a time where no one could go? Specifically, the public that's interested in politics, fixing Kings County, and yeah, that's the question.
The board has several meetings that happen at night. This South Park Sustainability Agency meets at 5:30 on Mondays, and you know how many people show up?
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah. The Association of Governments, we used to meet at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the afternoon. You know how many people showed up?
0.
Yeah. With the internet, with Facebook, you can look at the meetings. You don't have to go there and comment. You don't have to get there and roll your eyes and be all, you know, but you can certainly send in your comments. And whether you want to write a letter, write an email, write a text, you can certainly have your voice known without having a partner in your anatomy in a seat. And because it's very, very difficult to find a time. Some people work at night, some people have kids that play sports, some people have different opportunities. Once you get home and it's hot, you don't want to go out. It's just a different environment. You know, the boards just, yeah, I'm not sure why. Many of the counties meet on Tuesday. Some of them are 9, some of them are 10, some of them are 2 days a month, some of them are 4. We haven't meet 4 or every Tuesday, except when Doug wants to take a Tuesday off, then we go ahead and shut that one down. But most of the time, you know, we have an opportunity. If you can have an issue, if you have a question, if you have a comment, send a text, send an email, send a letter. Write a letter. And get it to us, and we'll read it into the record, and we'll try to address it. But it's been my experience that time of day, you just can't make everybody happy. Sure. And it makes it difficult. We have tried on the road. We went to Corcoran, we went to Avenel. People say they want to do that. The CART meetings, we have CART meetings. That's a very specialized population that rides buses, you know, and it's difficult for them to come out for an evening meeting. So it's just difficult. But certainly use social media, certainly use any means you can to get informed and share your views.
All right, thanks for the answer.
You bet.
I've known him for many, many years. And he was very, he's worked at the senior center. He's been a very advocate for the more senior center. He really, really volunteers his time and loves the city and loves the county. And I just want to thank you very much.
Thanks.
We're still not getting that Corvette for Christmas, but
He probably sit on your lap.
That's.
All right, thanks for coming out tonight. We appreciate everyone that came out to listen to Joe. This is what we need: we need input and participation from the community. You heard Joe say that the meetings are during the day because no one comes out to them anyway if they move to the night. That's our fault. All right, we have a pretty good presence at the Hanford City Council meetings just because it's convenient for us at work. There would be a presence at the Board of Supervisors. We know that if it was at a time that we could attend. So although you don't see our faces, know that we are highly interested in what's going on, just to be clear. All right, thanks everybody. We're going to cut the live stream. Thanks for coming.